This is the Mental Metal Podcast, and I am your host, Coach Thomann. I'm a former athlete, teacher, coach, and athletic director that switched careers after surviving cancer and a stroke in the fall of 2020. But I'm also a dad of a son and a daughter that were successful high school athletes that went on to college. Now I use that experience along with my ICF coaching certification when helping teams, coaches, and athletes from all over the country. Each week, I will pose a specific question that will help coaches of all types better understand mental toughness. In the Mental Metal Podcast, coaches will learn to help their athletes overcome adversity without being the adversity they need to overcome. Welcome back to the Mental Metal Podcast. I am your host, Coach Thomann, and as I try to do almost every episode, I start with a little bit of gratitude and thanking everyone for being here. I really appreciate everybody listening and taking time out of your day to listen or watch, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, or if you watch on YouTube, I don't really care, but I love that you're doing it, and I love the shares. I love the follows. It's fantastic. And today's episode, I'm going to go the gratitude a little bit further because my guest today is somebody that I owe a lot of thanks to. I have a lot of gratitude for this woman. I've shared it with her so much already. It's not every day that I have somebody on my podcast that I hesitate to say that she saved my life, but she definitely made my life what it is today. And where I would have been without her was not somewhere I wanted to be. So she definitely changed my life in a way that makes it unrecognizable from what it was. And that's as close as I'll say to saving it. And I'll take that, right? So that's to say that today's episode is different. Usually I have coaches, athletes, and my guest today is more on the nitty gritty on how mentality works, in the sense that she is a therapist that is trained in positive psychology, works with people with brain injuries, and that's how I got to know her. And I'll tell that story a little bit, but a little bit background. If you don't know my story, I guess you can fast forward a little bit, but I'll tell you just a little bit. So I, growing up, did sports. That's why I got into sports here so much. But then I became a basketball coach and a teacher, and then an athletic director in the public schools in a public school in Illinois. And then it was 2020 during the pandemic, which was full enough of anxiety and worry, and everybody had a little bit of that going on. It was in September. I battled cancer, testicular cancer. Had to have some scans. Had to have a surgery that wasn't all that fun. Had to constantly worrying about if it was spread or not. I came back to work during the pandemic. Things weren't great. We weren't playing sports. I had kids. My daughter was in college, playing her first year of college. My son's looked like his junior year was going to be shut down, which it kind of like it was at that point in fall of 2020. So that wasn't, that's a big deal in my family to not have the basketball season. And then I was working as an administrator as well and doing way too much there. The anxiety, had some other health issues. My wife had some health issues. It was just way too much, and I didn't handle it all that well. I was having a lot of stress and anxiety, and it bubbled over at some point in December because I had a ischemic stroke. And that's just a crazy story. If you ever listen to the entire thing, it's just 1 minute you're fine and the next you're not, in the sense that I couldn't feel my right side and I couldn't speak correctly. And that took a while to fix, as you're going to hear in this podcast, 12 to 18 months of recovery from 1 second, everything fine, to next thing you know, you got 12 to 18 months of recovery to learn how to make sure you're speaking correctly again. So that's how I ended up to know my guest today, and her name's Tammy Lott. A little bit further on that story, after my stroke, the anxiety and stress got worse, which was understandable, right? Suddenly wasn't able to do my job, wasn't able to do the things I usually could do, and couldn't even, I could talk, but it wasn't great. And it was just hard to communicate and get points across. And I ended up back in the emergency room having PTSD attack about 2 to 3 weeks after my stroke. It was just too much. And I wasn't handling it right. I wasn't doing things, wasn't taking the situation like it should. And I was trying to do way too much, and I was trying to control everything. And it was that moment that I got hooked up with, that the night ER nurse was like, honey, she was very matter of fact. She was like, honey, you need some help. Your neurologist should have hooked you up with a therapist. They have therapists that are trained to work with people who've had brain trauma, which you've had. And I'm putting this on your chart, and you need to get in there ASAP. And luckily I did. And that is in my story, as I try to tell the story the best I can and to try to help people and to show things. That is my turning point. That's the pivot. Whenever I went in there, decided to go to therapy, and started going to therapy, because Tammy helped me. I mean, she was doing her job, but she just, I'd never been to therapy before. I had that, Midwestern male attitude towards it, right? I'm not going to go to therapy. I'm fine. I'll suck it up. I was a guy who lifted and ran, and I had all these things, and I was, I'll tough it out. And so I probably needed it before I had my stroke, to be honest. And so I went, but when I finally got in there, I thought, oh, she's just going to help me with stuff with dealing with my stroke. And she did. But I quickly found out that that's not all we were doing. I learned about how neural pathways can be developed and changed, and I needed that because I had an injury, and when you kill part of your brain, it doesn't come back, it doesn't grow back. So that was why I couldn't speak correctly. So I had to create these pathways to go around it, and she was helping me find ways to do that. But then she was really clear to let me know that that's not all these pathways can be developed for. They can be just created for things that we want. We want to feel a certain way about something. We can just do that. And to me, that was eye-opening. That if I'm feeling anxious about something, or if I'm depressed about something, or I'm worried about something, I can't change the situation, but I can change how I feel about it. And the operating procedure that she works on, kind of like the system she uses, this positive psychology. And this positive psychology, I know if you don't know what it is, you're just like, oh, it just means walk around being happy all the time. No, that's not what it means. Positive psychology is psychology that focuses on positivity, but uses it to create neural pathways that change how you see the world and how you operate. And because happiness and good and bad is so much in our mind, it's so much in the way we see something. And if right now you just say, well, I don't believe that things are bad, and my bad situation, it's because you can't see the other side. And I was there, and now I understand how I was looking at things, and I see things differently. So when we talk about positive psychology, and we talk about neural pathways, when we start talking about therapy and coaching, it is 100% real in how it can help. And this is something she's going to talk about in this interview, about how the science is there, how it's useful, how it's developed, and just basically why you should be looking into it for yourself. Honestly, I get this question, I get this comment all the time when I talk to people about being a coach, and they're like, well, I know somebody who needs a coach. They're like, oh, really? And it's always about somebody else. And if I had $1 for every time somebody was for somebody else or not for them, I think, I wouldn't have to I wouldn't have to work. I know that, but nobody really wants it for themselves. And I get it. I've been there, but it is one of the most useful things you can do for yourself is to get yourself a dose of some positive psychology, start changing those neural pathways. And you're going to hear in this interview a lot about that. It definitely applies to athletics, and we're going to talk about that. So coaches, don't tune out. This is something that's really going to help your athletes and yourself. So stick around, and I got a lot to say after she's done talking too. So stick around. It's a phenomenal episode.
Educators and coaches, let's talk about professional development speakers for a moment. You know the drill. There's some good out there, but there's a lot of bad. I've been there and I've felt your frustration. And that's why I've got something different for you. Professional development that's actually engaging and genuinely useful. As a certified coach and a former educator, I understand the struggles our students and athletes face. The pandemic's impact is real, but so is the potential for positive change. Mental Metal Coaching has 2 presentations designed to help you tackle the social emotional challenges that schools are dealing with. First is for teachers of all ages and is called Live Your 100. This transformative journey draws from my own experiences overcoming hardship. This seminar equips you with the tools to assess mental states, conquer challenges, and infuse positivity into classrooms and to teams. Learn not to survive, but actually thrive. And the second presentation is specifically for coaches, those that tend to sit in the back and draw up plays during presentations. This presentation is called Forging Mental Metal in Athletes. It is not your typical PD. It's about actionable techniques. Empower your athletes to face adversity, develop growth mindsets, and break mental barriers that hold them back. I get it, the skepticism around PD is real, and that's why Mental Metal Coaching stands out. My presentations are rooted in real-world struggles, delivering strategies that you can apply right away. If it all sounds good, contact me, Coach Thomann, or send my information to your administration. Let them know that you want to see professional development that will actually make a difference. And welcome back to the Mental Meta podcast. I am here with my guest today, Tammy Lott, and I have been really excited about having Tammy on the podcast for a while. We have had several conversations over Zoom or whatever, or telehealth or whatever. It's been, I don't know now, a couple of years probably since we last talked. So this is it's fairly familiar with us. And just a little bit before I go any further, because I know that if I don't say it, that you will bring it up. It was 100% my idea to have you on the podcast and to help me tell a little bit of my story. And I've signed the necessary paperwork, and it's all good. And because I know that was, and as it should be, right? That should definitely be something that, the confidentiality and the ethics and all that. Absolutely. I get that. That's why I just wanted to throw that out there. I wanted to do it while everybody was listening, while you were there. And just so, hey, just making sure. So, and that kind of talks a little bit about how I know Tammy, but give me a little bit of your background, what it is you do. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I have a master's degree in counseling, and I've been a counselor for, we'll just say a long time. And not the majority, the entirety of my career has been working with a medical population. So I have kind of an interesting, different gig in counseling, that I don't work in community mental health, or, I work in a hospital setting with patients with, pretty major medical issues. And even more specifically, I work primarily with patients with neurological issues. So patients who've had stroke, traumatic brain injury, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, Huntington's, headache, migraine, anything neurological. So my focus has always been pretty
Yeah. So
specific.
how did you get into that
Yeah.
gig?
Well, it was kind of roundabout because I was finishing up my master's degree and I was kind of panicking because I wasn't super sure exactly what I wanted to do. And then I found my internship was working with people with traumatic brain injury. I kind of stumbled upon this place, and literally, like the first hour, I was like, "Oh, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do." I loved it, and so, and ever since then, it was just I knew this is what I wanted to do, and yeah, I started off with a job working with a community-based program for people with traumatic brain injury, getting them jobs, and then got my job that I've been at basically ever since with OSF, working with
And I could go
neurological
down
patients.
and wax poetic like all day about the different things that of how people meet and influence people's different lives and things like that. But I'm really glad you had that internship because you've and I know that you're like, oh, that's just my job and whatever, and I get that, but you are a big deal in my life, and it is and I've
Oh,
told you that, but every time you
no.
do that, and I know that you're doing your job, but the fact that you're doing your job and somebody does that job is really, I'll be honest. When I came to you the first time, I didn't know, you know how I ended up there is like, anybody listening who's ever listened to any of my, uh, my speaking and things like that, I'll always mention the time about when I came back after this in my stroke, and it seemed like, oh, I was getting to work and I was trying to learn how to talk better again and read again and things like that, and thinking, oh, well, all I need to do is just keep working and I'll be fine. And then like 2-3 weeks after my stroke, I'm back in the ER having a full on PTSD anxiety attack. And that's the first time somebody suggested to me, yeah, you might want to go to therapy. And at that point I was like,
Mhm.
I wish somebody would have said it before, but it was fine, right? Because I probably needed some
Mhm.
therapy before I even had my stroke. It probably would have helped the whole thing. But that's how I ended up, having conversations with you. And I had no idea that there was a therapist that worked specifically with people with brain injuries. And I don't know.
Mhm.
Is it what makes what you do different than what people would think about as a counselor?
I think part of it is because it's so focused and specific. And I think like my treatment, a lot of it comes from a brain approach, because obviously neurologically working with the brain, and often neurology kind of crosses over into psychiatry. So that there is kind of a mix there. But for me specifically, um, I really have to come at things from a brain standpoint, and not that the emotional part isn't a factor, because it's huge. Obviously, we talked a lot about the effects of stress and anxiety can have on our mental health or physical health. Um, but we coming at it from a brain standpoint, and it's very specific, and a lot of times, what I do involves a lot of education, because people are coming, their life has been turned upside down with this thing that maybe before they didn't know much about. And so a lot of what I do, especially in the beginning with patients, and depending on the severity, but is kind of that,
Yeah.
now what do I do? And so I feel like for me, I always joke with my patients that I'm kind of bossy. Um, and that's different than a lot of other arenas for counseling, but that's just because people are kind of often scared or don't understand, and they want somebody to
Yeah.
tell them what to do, for
I
lack of
don't
a
know
better
if that was
term.
the case
Yeah.
for me or not. I don't know that I needed somebody to tell me what to do because I don't know. I don't know. Like, it's interesting.
Yeah. I didn't see a lot of that with you. I think I felt like it was a lot of
Yeah.
things sinking in. Um, you know, kind of, gradually. But yeah, it was, and that's why I said, like, depends on severity. Some people, if their stroke or their brain injury or their whatever is very, like,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's kind of sudden onset and severe, it's very different than
Well,
what.
and that's the thing is like
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
talk about like on one day wasn't fine because I was struggling before my stroke with a lot of anxiety and stuff like that. But one minute I was fine, and the next I couldn't tell you my wife's name, and it was like, so I think that I always tell the story that I couldn't tell my wife's name. I couldn't they would show me a picture and I couldn't even say anything about it. I couldn't tell you what was going on in the picture. But they told me at that moment, they're like, hey, we think you can recover, but it'll be 12 to 18 months. And that to me was like, there were two things I took when they said that. One, how can you say that? Because I am not hitting it out of the park right now, right? I can't even say my wife's name. How do you know I'm going to recover? And two, like, I've never had anything. I've been injured before and done things, but nothing takes 12 to 18 months. Like, how can it take 12 to 18 months? And what is actually happening? And I always tell people that's because they know about neuroplasticity, which I didn't know. And tell me about why is it that they knew 12 to 18 months was going to be that's how long it takes?
It's pretty, I would say it's real. That number is pretty across the board accurate. And I say that to patients at least once a day, because a lot of times, it's very consistent, whether it's a brain injury, stroke, we expect to see significant improvements for 12 to 18 months. Not to say that at 18 months, that's it. There's no more improvements after that, but that is the big, where you see the most meaningful, rapid improvement. And often that number is, people receive it differently, but sometimes people are hugely relieved by it because let's say they're 3 months out from a brain injury or stroke and they're not doing well. And they're afraid, like, is this it? Is this as good as I'm going to get? Because it's so gradual. So when you tell them, you got a whole year left of getting better, for a lot of people, that helps them. Like, okay, all right. So it can be kind of.
So the first time I heard it wasn't from you; it was from the neurologist in the hospital, and he said, "Hey, 12 to 18 months." And you know what my first thought was? Okay, fine. I got it. I got it, and it'll take me 3-6 months. I'm fine. Like, it's not going to take 12 days. And I think that was, like you said, it was sinking in for me that no, this is a heal. Like, we're actually growing new neurons, right? Which was. That does not happen fast.
No, it does not. It does not.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you, by all means. Tell me about growing neurons. Why does that take so long?
Okay. Why it takes so long, I guess I probably can't answer that part. But how it works and how amazing it is I think we're still learning about that. It wasn't that long ago that in science, psychology, we kind of thought that the brain was hardwired. We thought that it is what it is. You can't teach an old dog a new trick, stuff like that. And now I know that's not true. The brain is adaptable. It can change. It can grow. And so I always say, that, not just talking about recovering from an injury like this to the brain, but in general, anybody can change if they want to. Now, if someone doesn't want to, then they're not going to. But if you want to, and you start creating these new neural pathways, it can change everything. And so what neuroplasticity is starting new neural pathways and practicing those and reinforcing those. And that when you do that, you're weakening the old ones. And so you're literally rewiring your brain. And when I first started really focusing more on this approach and learning more about neuroplasticity, at first it sounds almost too good to be true. And almost sounds a little out there, when you first start hearing that. But the more I thought about it, I work with, like, early in my career, worked with really specifically just traumatic brain injuries, people who've been in a car accident, a fall, things like that. And, if I was working with someone right after their injury doing coma stimulation where they, weren't responding to anything at all, and then, 3 months later, they walk out the door with their family, different. They're not, same, but when something happened between, A and B. And so you're tapping into new parts of the brain. And that's what neuroplasticity is.
They always say, whenever I tell people about neuroplasticity, because you got me hooked on it, and now I'll get into that in a minute, but they said it's in response to injury, learning, and experience, right? And for me, I think that's what I learned was that, when you have a stroke, which I had mine and it hit me in right up in here in the speech centers here, like that, those cells aren't coming back, right? And so the 12 to 18 months is the neurons kind of like building new pathways so that I could, because that was what is hard for people to understand is when people were asking me questions, I had the answers, but I couldn't give them. And
retrieve
it helps so much to me to understand that that pathway has been damaged. It's like a road that I just can't, you can't drive that road yet. We need to build a new road. And that's what really helped me that like, oh, okay, then this is going to take time. It's just going to take time to build a road. But I needed it for injury, but and that was to help me with my speaking, but it's not like you helped me necessarily or with the speaking so much is we just said, I can remember you telling me something like, hey, like we're going to build these neurons like to help you speak, but look, we can do the same thing, building new neural pathways to help you with your anxiety and that to me was like, wait a minute here. Like that's powerful to me.
Yeah, it is. It's powerful. I think it's empowering. Yeah. So this isn't just for recovering from a brain injury. This is for, anybody can use, to change, whether the goal is to, fix or turn around anxiety to help with panic attacks or just generalized anxiety or depression or, any like a specific phobia or fear that you're worried about completing, confidence, and even, moving into like, athletics and, being able to change your performance and your mindset.
Yeah.
It
And
applies to all of it.
but it also helped me understand that when we have a pathway that's already developed, right? That like if you have somebody who's depressed about something or doesn't like their job or hates what they go do or something like that, to tell them, oh, just be happy, it'll be fine. That's not, it's not helpful because they can't just do that. And they can't even see the path to where that's even possible because they don't have those neural connections. But we can create that. But what you said was though, you've got to have the motivation to want to do it. Confidence is knowing what you can do and then going out and doing it. But confidence is also knowing what you can't do. Well, I am confident that I can help your athlete if they're struggling with some mental aspects of their game. However, I'm also confident that I can't help them if you never schedule the first session. That's pretty simple. And I get it. You're busy. Your kid's hesitant. You aren't sure how coaching works. Well, let me fix some of that. If you click on the link provided, you'll be able to schedule a free 30-minute session with me. Your athlete will experience mental performance coaching, and you as the parent will get to ask some questions. There's no cost. There's no obligation. It's just an opportunity for you and your athlete to better understand the transformative power of mental performance coaching. I've helped dozens of athletes conquer anxiety, reach goals, and get over confidence issues. And I use proven methods and techniques. If your athlete has a goal, I'm confident I can help them get there. However, I can't schedule that first session for you. So click on the link to schedule that session. At Mental Metal Coaching, booking the first session is up to you, but the transformation is up to us.
Yeah. You do. I mean, you have to, I will say though, I don't think you necessarily have to be completely confident it's going to work, or even be confident you're going to believe in it. As long as you do the work, it's still going to work.
Right. That's nice. I mean, I think it helps. I think it helps if you have the right mindset around it, but it's going to work. Yeah. I mean, I just, but no, there's still frustration with it, right? I can just somebody who's gone through it. It's like, you want it to happen faster than it's going to. And it just doesn't. No. And I think that's what, so when we talk about about mental health and the answers. And people are like, oh, I don't know what the answers are. And things like, I think the answers are there. They're just not easy. And
Right. Exactly. And I think a part of when people start, not everyone, but sometimes when people hear about positive psychology or, you know, these kind of approaches, they may jump to the conclusion that means we're just saying, oh, quit being depressed, quit being anxious, just be happy, just relax. No, that's not at all. The ultimate focus is on the positivity and the hope and the good stuff changing. But one, especially with, you know, depression, or if there's reasons behind anxiety, sometimes we have to dig a little bit and release some stuff that people are struggling with. But yeah, focusing on positive psychology does not mean that that you just, it's not about wishful thinking. It's not just about, knock it off and just be happy. It's way more complicated than
I'm a
that.
huge positive psychology guy now. Like, I didn't know anything about it until you told me about it. Now I'm, you know, reading all the Seligman I can get my hands on and all this stuff. But for all those that are listening and don't really know, like, give me like, you're the expert on this. What is positive psychology? What is that? You're telling me what it isn't, right? But what is positive psychology?
Well, I think, and this is just my own personal understanding and how I use it in my practice. I start in the very beginning with hope. I think if someone, and by no fault of their own, because usually, especially the people I see, have been through some stuff. And so, but if someone is in a place in their head where they feel like nothing's going to change, nothing's going to get better, there's no hope. This is it. I guess this is my, you know, cross to bear. I guess this is how it's going to be. It's very hard to change anything. And so often the first time I meet with someone, the very first thing we focus on is, you know, I say like that little flicker of hope in their head that has often died out. Let's fire that back up, and even visualize firing that little flicker of hope back up, you know, and to challenge yourself a little bit. So if you know, if I have someone who has pain issues and they're kind of feeling hopeless that it's ever going to get better, you know, fire up that little flicker of hope. And when their brain steps in, is like, oh, it's never going to get better, to challenge that and say, why not? Stranger things have happened in this world. So you're telling me that there's no hope, that I can't bring my pain down a few notches? Yes, you can. And so that kind of hope, positive expectation, just planting that seed, just introducing the idea, I think is important. Now, if someone is already there and they still feel hopeful, then we move on to the next. But I feel like that's the first part. And I think then I kind of build a little bit more on that positive expectation. Like, what do you want? Sometimes I say, if I had that magic wand, what would you be doing? What would you feel like? What would your life look like? And because if you can do that and just like, I'm like, don't worry. And I was, you know, don't think about what is or isn't possible. Don't think about doctors or your family or anybody's. You right now, if you had that wand, what would you do? How would you feel? How would you function? And starting that as and we may need to tweak it, but starting that as a general. Okay,
yeah, I think that's, I mean, I'm loving this conversation because it is, and I'm going to get into what I'm doing now with the coaching but there's so many connections there about it. It's just like, I tell people all the time, like, I can't help you if you don't know where you want to go. And sometimes we can, but it's okay to, in that space, it's okay to dream a little bit. You don't have, like, it is, because it's sure a lot better than where you are. Right. And, you know, and if we get halfway there, we're going to feel like that's a huge bonus. I just,
exactly.
But I think I love what you're saying about the, you know, don't just be positive idea, because I had, there's one podcast, or I'm sorry, I was talking to some parents one point, and I just said, hey, and I could tell that we're paying attention to something. I was talking about positivity. I'm like, look, if you just go home and say, oh, he said, just be positive, you really aren't paying attention, because that's not what this is saying. Like, it's not about just being positive, but if you start thinking positively, that's how you start to make those connections, those neural connections, and rather than thinking about them negatively, or it's
Exactly. I tell people, I have this conversation with people a lot about those those neural pathways. So like the kind of what, okay, so what you're talking about, I can add to that. The brain can't tell the difference between imagined and real. So if I do a thing or if I imagine a thing, the brain responds the same way. It processes it the same way. It starts a neural pathway. It doesn't matter if I actually did it, even if I just think about it. So if I think about it with detail and consistency on a regular basis, and that's what I tell people, I stress over and over, this is not wishful thinking. This is not toxic positivity. This is shifting your focus from thinking about, what I don't want to what I do want. And when you do that, again, it's not wishful thinking. It's about starting a neural pathway in your brain. Instead of, because if I sit all day and think about how awful my next day is going to be, and I just imagine it and I visualize it and I verbalize it.
Yeah, and that's what I was just going to say, that your idea about the brain can't tell the difference between real and imagined, that's a dangerous thing too. Like, we're talking about how we can use it positively, but that's how people get themselves in these terrible, terrible situations in their head. They just genuinely believe things like that they are the worst person in the world.
Yes, exactly. And that, a lot of that is the kind of our self-talk too, what we say about ourselves. And I think, it's a video I watch a lot with patients. He's talking about, that this really important sentence, I am. And if you're a constant, I am awful, I am weak, I am sick, I can't, if that is your internal dialogue, you just keep spinning your wheels. And I want to say with all this, like, especially talking about a stroke, we're talking about an organic problem in the brain. With depression and anxiety, these are chemical conditions that someone can't just turn around like that. This isn't something that anyone is choosing. And so the answer isn't, one, do this one thing and you get better. It's usually several things. But our minds are so powerful. And I feel like we know like this much. I think we're starting to learn more. But tapping into what you want and letting yourself dream a little, like you said.
Yeah. When I came to you, the first time we met, I had been the last 4 months, I had gone through testicular cancer. I've been trying to run a school during a pandemic. Then I had the stroke, and I was not, and I'm a fairly confident guy for most of my life, but I had, that was gone. Whenever I know when I came to you, that was gone. I felt utterly and completely useless and couldn't control anything. And I know that people would be like, oh, hey, come on. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You still got a family that's great and all this, but that wasn't what was first and foremost in my head.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think even someone who's, very, very strong and very confident, when you're hit with something like a stroke, not to mention a stroke on top of cancer during a pandemic, you could take a lot, but, I think everybody has their maximum, and, kind of knocks you down, but then you can get back up and kind of design what you want the next chapter to look like.
And that's it. I mean, designing the next chapter. And I think that's, I like the word design, because I do think that you said deciding where you want to go is one of the first things that we need to figure out, is as far as positive psychology, therapy, coaching. It doesn't matter what it is. It's like, at least you got to figure out where you're going. So, wow. So much there. Just, I love the idea of just that neuroplasticity. I think it's so important for people, and they just don't use it. Right. I think that people just go through life doing the same things all the time. But then when they meet somebody who does practice neuroplasticity and like says, oh, I am going to learn how to do this. I'm going to put myself through this tough situation and be happy about it. And they do these things, and people that don't practice any sort of neuroplasticity or face any adversity are like, I couldn't do that. I don't see how, I don't know how they do that, but they're just different than me and I can't do that. Right. And I don't think that's true.
Yeah. No, I don't either. And I've certainly, I probably regularly come across people like that. And again, no shame or fault to them. They've been through some stuff and they're in a bad place. And so, sometimes they just need someone to kind of reach down and pull them up and say, yeah, you can, this is possible. Is it possible to reach this, to function better cognitively and be more clear-minded? Yeah. Is it possible to bring your pain down a few notches? Yeah. Even if you have something like multiple sclerosis, which we're not going to make that go away, is it possible to calm down some of the pain and the muscle spasms? Yeah. There's always wiggle room for hope. And I talk to people a lot about this, that there's always wiggle room for hope, because I know that the difference, the anxiety, depression, stress, even just a negative mindset, how much that has on our mental health and our physical health. And that's where the hope lies, because all of those things are treatable. So even if someone has something that's not treatable or not fixable, like multiple sclerosis, although we're way better at treatment, have a lot better treatment options, which is awesome. But that's the way we're thinking, and the neural pathways that we keep using is making the symptoms worse than they have to be. So we can treat the stuff that's treatable, and then it helps the stuff that's not treatable.
Yeah. To me, I have a background in science. I got a degree in biology. And whenever you started talking about these neuroplasticity, the neural pathways, and we're developing these neurons, I think that, I don't know, we think about physical health and we're like, oh, I broke an arm. Oh, it'll heal. Right. And we have no question. We're like, oh, it'll heal. Right. Oh, of course it will. But then I don't think we think of our brains as being part of our body. Right. Like it's like, well, my brain's not going to grow. And it's not going to really heal, but it absolutely does. And the same with, I can go to the gym and build my quads and my biceps and I can do the same thing with neural pathways, right? If I want to grow a neural pathway, it's the same thing. I can go to it's the same idea. And to me, I don't think people understand that or utilize that. And that's what I'm trying to do now with people, that it's like, this is so useful for anyone. And,
yes.
Man, so as from the neuroplasticity, standpoint, that I now work mostly with athletes and focus on mental toughness, right? What's the connection there between mental toughness and neural pathways and neuroplasticity? Is there one? What's the connection there? I know I'm putting you on the spot there with that question, but I think you'll handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think, a couple of things come to mind. The first is, and they're very connected, but the first is mindfulness, which is, so I think, to answer your question, really short would be mindfulness and neuroplasticity. So not mindlessness, mindfulness. Really,
that's all right. Hey, I've been there with both, so we're good. Yeah.
Yeah. So mindfulness is really a way of being. It's of being present in the moment and not spending too much time in the future or the past, and being now and being very fluid. Like this, I hate the term because it's overused. It is what it is, but kind of sort of being in the moment and being fluid and not being too judgmental of what is in the moment. It just is, and being present in the now. So I think that's one piece. And the other piece I think that would tie in to athletes would definitely be the neuroplasticity piece and I have some specific, really one in particular I'm thinking of, a specific practice that I have people do that can make all the difference in strengthening those neural pathways. So, like what I was using more and more and more of this is and I do different, I kind of tweak it for each person, but a lot of visualization strategies. So if someone, so for instance, if, I had someone, this is kind of a good example. I had someone who had terrible fear of surgery. And this person had multiple surgeries in his life. He had a chronic condition that was not going to change and would probably have more surgeries. Usually those patients are pros, like it doesn't even phase them anymore, but not this particular person. And so, he talked about what it was usually like to go for these surgeries. And he was, super anxious and upset and a mess, and pain was increased for weeks beforehand. And then often these surgeries would happen in Chicago. So he would go and be just kind of a hot mess, and he'd be upset. And, in like when he would get to the hospital, would be extremely anxious. He says, sometimes I would just cry and get hysterical, his words, not mine. And just very upset, very anxious, very negative, very scared. And every time it was an overall awful experience because his pain, he was so upset, and his pain wasn't controlled. He always ended up staying longer in the hospital than he thought he was going to. The procedures, it just never went well. It was always a mess. So we talked about this a visualization strategy, and I said, okay, so I want you to do this 3 or 4 times a day. Just take a minute or 2 each time, and close your eyes and breathe deeply and visualize how you want it to go. And when the thoughts of how it's always gone, that's okay. Just wipe them out and visualize yourself driving to Chicago and feeling surprisingly calm. Visualize yourself checking into the hotel. Visualize yourself just enjoying your night. Visualize yourself checking into the hospital the next day. Visualize the procedure going smooth. Visualize your pain controlled. Like all these, steps. And I always encourage people to use details. And so visualize it. So you're making a little movie in your head, and do that, close your, breathing, and do that, like I said, 3 or 4 times a day, every day. And he did. And that next surgery,
I don't know if you, I don't remember, I don't know if you remember, Tammy, we did the same thing with me when I was heading back to work. I was,
Yep.
I had recently had the testicular cancer, and I had to come back for that. And everybody was like, always wanting to know how you're doing. And how you doing, and things like that. And then, the look. And then I knew that having the stroke and then coming back, it was going to be I was like, it's going to be 10 times worse. Right. And it kept me from wanting to go back at all to work. And we did this visualization strategy about, I remember you saying, play the movie. How's it going to go when you go in? You know what people are going to say. How are you going to respond? How do you want to respond? And you're right. The mind doesn't tell the difference between real and imagined. And if I imagine something, I can make it's that manifestation a little bit, which it feels like it's like mumbo jumbo, whatever, but it's real. Like it's perceived as and
it does.
So if I were to tell you, you're the expert here, that I am trying to tell coaches of athletic coaches that it is worth your, if you started every practice with 10 to 15 minutes of mindfulness and visualization on how you want it to go, because coaches are always so busy, right? They're like, oh, we need to work on this. We need to work on this. And they feel like this sort of stuff would be a waste of time. From your professional opinion, how useful would something like that be?
Incredibly useful. I mean, because we're talking about the brain. The brain, it's everything. I mean, it controls everything. And I would venture to say all sports, especially, some sports are so mental, that if your brain isn't in the right place and you're focused on what you don't want to happen, it's probably not going to go your way. And so, again, this isn't, it can sound kind of mumbo jumbo, kind of woo woo. And I just talked to someone about that recently, because she's like, it kind of sounds like manifesting. I'm like, in a way, and I said, I personally, I don't dismiss that. And sometimes it feels like there is a spiritual aspect in some of this stuff.
Less than 1% of high school athletes ever become professional athletes. But as parents, we invest in their athletic pursuits because we know it's worth it. Sports build vital life skills. Confidence, perseverance, and the joy they bring are invaluable lessons from sports. But what if your athlete is facing the other side? What if anxiety, apathy, and sorrow have replaced the joy? Well, I can help. My name is Matt Thomann, and I am a certified mental coach. And I understand the challenges young athletes face. I've seen mental coaching transform the mindset of many young athletes. It's not about turning them into pros, but nurturing their inner strength for sports and for life. At Mental Metal Coaching, we offer virtual sessions to help them tackle challenges, build confidence, and rediscover the joy of sports. Every young athlete deserves to thrive. Mental Metal Coaching, facing adversity with a smile. The Mental Metal Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Quick Cut. Quick Cut is the new alternative to Huddle. It's no secret why Quick Cut is the fastest growing platform in the country. Their video analysis platform has everything you need. Plus, you'll get triple the storage at about half the price. And now get even more when you use the promo code 50hours for 50 hours of free video storage. Make the switch. You'll be glad you did. Visit quickcut.com today.
But I'm coming at it from a brain standpoint where we're starting neural pathways, and that's what it's about. And, we can see things light up.
I was going to ask that. I was going to ask about that next. So talk about that, because this is things that they can see. It's not, they can see it happening on scans, right?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. They can see, different areas of the brain lighting up. So this isn't just, again, it's not wishful thinking. It's not mumbo jumbo. It's about tapping into different parts of the brain. And if your brain is following neural pathway A, and it's a bad one, and it keeps doing things you don't want it to do, how do we weaken that? We start a new one, and we can see that light up. So it really is about, it's like, about the brain.
So to give an example on what we're talking about here, I'm just going to throw this example, and again, you stop me at any point I'm saying something wrong. Like, if we could take an athlete and we could have a brain scan, and we say we want to talk about a coach that you have, right? Maybe you don't like this coach, right? And you hate the practice, you hate going to practice, you hate the team, you hate going to this, and we could say start talking about it, and just talking about it, they can see what part of your brain lights up. If we could get this athlete to practice positive psychology for the next 3 months, I don't know what the time frame is, 3 to 6 months. Again, it's not fast, right? If we had them do that for 3 to 6 months and came in and asked the same questions while they're in the scan, we would see a different part of their brain light up, right?
Yes.
I don't need it. I don't need anything else. To me, the fact that we can see those, it's like, feel the difference, hear the difference, and see the difference on a brain scan. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's pretty cool. I mean, even like, if someone just comes in with depression, and what their brain scan looks like when they're really depressed, and then after they've been treated, it's different. So this isn't just like verbal report we're getting from people. I mean, that's what I get. Obviously, I don't do research. I'm not scanning people's brains, but the studies that I look at and read about, that's what happens.
So you don't see the scans, and I do the same thing. I read the research. You read the research, but what do you see? Mm-hmm. Like, what changes do you see in people whenever you start putting this positive psychology together?
I see their functioning changing, like as far as what they can do during the day. I see and I mean, that can be, depends on what their severity is, what they do during the day. But as far as being able to function around their home or at work like they want, I see that starting to get better. I often see pain starting to decrease. I can see, anxiety calm down. Maybe if someone's having panic attacks, they're not having panic attacks anymore. So that's how I measure it with those things. I can even see it like in people's affect. I've had a patient who had a medical condition, was not in a good place mentally, emotionally, started to shift that, and really just went after a new job that he felt he wanted and he could do well. And he went into it with he was starting to get better, a completely different, I want this, I can do this. And he did it and he got the job. And when he came back in, even just his affect, like his face, completely different.
And I'm sure I can't believe that you have many clients like me that actually go in like get so excited about positive psychology that they actually switch careers and do that. But it has to. Yeah. But I know it changed. Even if I hadn't changed careers, it changed my outlook completely. I don't think I would have gone and switched careers and gone into the coaching cohort that I went into and doing all that if not for believing that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. It applies to every aspect in life. So if someone, like you were asking about athletes, just in general, mindfulness, meditation, just general, I'm talking about some specific visualization strategies, but just a daily meditation practice, that alone, because you're retraining the brain, you're teaching the brain what it feels like to be calm and focused. And as far as the other piece of it with starting neural pathways, visualizing, spending a minute or two, several times a day, every day. To me, it's the consistency. It's not that you need to spend 20 minutes or half an hour doing this, but if you do it for a minute or two and you do it a few times a day and you do it every day and you visualize your game as you want it to be, your performance as you want it to be. And maybe even it's just you visualize your game and you are calm and focused, and that's it. Maybe you're not, focused, thinking about specific outcomes or anything, just that you're in it.
Yeah. I think calm. That one of the things that it's not funny, but like I'll say something to somebody about meditation and they'll say like, well, I tried that and it didn't calm me down. Well, you tried it one time, right? Like and so the thing about meditation, as far as it's not necessarily going to help you calm down in the moment, but it helps you learn how to be calm when you need to be. And that it's not, there's no free lunch. It takes time. Like if you want it, you have to build this, but it's so useful. And one of the things that I remember one of the questions that you asked me earlier, you said, I don't know, it was a question or whatever. I was talking about all these things and you said, well, she's like, you said, you're worried about all these things that you don't have any control over. And that is still something. And I don't know if you remember what I said, but I said, well, if you have a big ego like mine, you think you can control everything. And so that, but so part of that is breaking that down and understanding that. But that idea of, I have found that idea and I've done, of course, positive psychology. I now know where you got a lot of that stuff, because the focusing on what you can control is probably a number one thing that I find useful for athletes is I have yet to be surprised whenever I have a kid coming in that is anxious, that they're facing a lot of pressure, they aren't performing well, and we start analyzing where their focus is. It's always on things they have no control over. Always.
Yep. And that I spent a lot of time talking to people too about exactly what you just said, like with things you can't control, or saying there's nothing you can do about. And so I have kind of a list of like worry questions. So whenever you catch yourself worrying or upset about something, to ask yourself one or all of them, what can I do about this? And if the answer is nothing, what are we doing? And so, but again, with anxiety, I understand you can't just stop worrying about it because someone told you to. So, but to start recognizing in the moment, okay, what can I do about this? And asking yourself that question in the moment, what can I do about this? Well, nothing. And then we have strategies for letting it go. But that's a really good worry question. What can I do about this? Another good one is, does this serve me? I have people ask themselves that a lot. Because often they're worrying or upset about something, and the worry, it's not helping them, it's hurting them. It's not helping, like if there's someone else they're worried about, it's not changing. So that question, what does this serve me? And even though usually people logically know the answer to that, but when you ask yourself that in the moment. It helps disrupt.
Well, and what you just said, the word I picked up was recognition. And I find that so important, just because if you're able to recognize what you're doing and where you're thinking, people aren't recognizing it, right? They aren't even recognizing. And as soon as we can start to recognize things like that, they're like, I don't want to be like that. Then we can start. To me, that's where some of the motivation comes in. We have to get the recognition piece first, and then we can get some of the some of the motivation. Like, oh, I don't like thinking like that. I don't need to think like that. Why am I thinking like that? So no,
it's not
at all.
Yep.
No, and we, so there's just, man, I could keep going. Some of the things you're talking about are just, this is what I love to do now. And that's, again, I have so many thanks to you for leading me down this path. And I know you're doing your job, and somebody referred me to you, but hey, I know you do.
I do care. I do. I don't want to do my job. I want my patients to get better. If they don't, then I feel.
No, I feel that a lot, because it's weird to me getting into this sort of industry now that I really want to help people, but then I also like want to stay in business, right? And it's like, oh, right. It is strange. At first, it felt weird to me to like take money from people to help people, but it's like my plumber does the same thing when I call him, right? So we right, exactly. Yeah. No, so let's go one last question here. You ready? I don't know how often you listen to the podcast, but the last question is always the same. What should I have asked you that I didn't?
I think you asked it in a way, but I think like specifically, how can these brain approaches help
by all
athletes?
Means, I wrote this down here and I didn't ask it. So yeah, let's talk about this, because that's what I'm all about. So let's go. Yeah, absolutely.
What you're about now. Yep. Which is awesome. Yeah. And I think, and I, by the way, I think it's an awesome focus, because, as a parent of an athlete, I know the, like mentally and emotionally, especially these athletes who want to go as far as they can possibly go. How could there not be a huge mental component to that? So, and I think so having more resources and support on helping to disrupt some bad habits in the brain is so invaluable. So I think with these athletes, the meditation, the mindfulness is a practice. And I mean, the mindfulness is a way of being. Meditation is a practice, but like you mentioned, it's not something that's going to help you in the moment. It's not going to calm you down if you're having a full-on panic attack. I look at that as a way of being, but I look at meditation as preventative. So like when you're giving the example of a coach making an example, a habit of everybody meditating on a regular basis, that's preventative. That's training your brain, starting neural pathways, just to teach it overall to be calmer and fluid and let things go. So I think that's a big piece of it. And I think the other piece is spending, and again, it can be short amounts of time, a few times a day, every day, focus on what you want your mindset to be. Maybe if it's helpful, like what you want your performance to be, visualize yourself executing as you want it to be. And when I think about that, I think about this quote a lot. And sometimes it helps people not think about specifically the things I have to do to get there. Who do I need to be to get there? And often that is calm and focused, and that's what this helps you do. And these practices are about starting neural pathways. They're about disrupting and stopping old pathways that aren't serving you.
There's new stuff coming out all the time. And there's so many useful tools. I'm recently trying to teach people about, we talked about voices, and the same thing. Voices are so important, and the way we talk to ourselves. And the research now is that it's helpful to talk to yourself in the third person voice. It helps us get away from which is so crazy, right? It's so crazy that if you can and so we start doing these things where we create characters for our voices, right? Like like this negative voice and this positive voice. And we talked like, let's tell this negative voice, thanks for your help. I know you're trying to protect me, but here's this positive voice. And so when I get my athletes to speak to themselves, it's in that voice. And I do some really cool stuff with that. I actually use I use an AI art program to create a completely unique image of their positive champion or whatever voice, and we take it and they put it on their phone so they can talk to them. But it's so, but that's just saying, like, I know to people it feels like this, like you were talking, this meditation, this stuff, it feels like a waste of time until you do it. And then I don't come back, and I'm sure you get this all the time. Not everybody, it helps different people progress in different levels. But when people experience it and see the power of it, they go, oh, okay, I get it now.
Yes. Yeah. There's actually a video. Kobe Bryant made a video about meditation.
Oh, you gave it to me. Yeah. You hooked me up with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That one, I think, can speak to a lot of athletes and he's spot on with what he's talking about. And it really, especially if you make it a daily practice, like I tell people, it can be nice and pleasant, relaxing, but I don't care. That's not what we're after. We're after about with the consistency, you're changing your brain.
And people think they're too busy for it. And it's just, I'm telling you, everything goes a little smoother and you get things like it's worth the 10 minutes or it just is.
Yeah,
it is.
Yep.
Wow, Tammy, I just thank you so much for coming on. This is fantastic. Anything else we missed?
No, I don't think so. I was going to mention, I just started a new book and I don't want to recommend it yet because but it's touching on a lot of these things that I think it's going to be a new favorite. And it talks a lot about these mind body practices and the effects it has on the brain. And so hopefully next time I'll be able to
I'd love to, and we'll get back in and we'll talk about it. I want to get to the point where parents and athletes, because you have a kid that plays baseball, right? And the money that parents put into stuff, right? Like, and I'm like, it's
not cheap.
I want to get to the point, obviously it's a professional thing for me, but I'd like to get to the point where people understand that this is if we're going to put this much time and effort into this sport, and it's not about getting a scholarship. To me, it's like athletics give us so much. It gives us so much, but if you're not experiencing it in the right way, it's the opposite. Right. And it's kind of like black and white. Sometimes you can leave a sport and just hate it and whatever, or it does really well. And if you're not getting everything out of it, that's where I'd love to see parents be like, okay, we need some therapy. We need a mental coach so we can get the biggest benefit out of what we're putting in, whatever that is.
Yeah. I agree.
And,
yes. Yeah.
And
if the athlete is in a good place mentally, they're going to enjoy it and have fun. I mean, no matter how good you are at a sport, if you're miserable,
and it can get that way. I would tell you, a lot of my clients, it's odd. A lot of people ask me about my clients, and I'm like, a lot of them are straight A students and the best player on their team and all this. And they're like, well, what are they? Like, that's how it goes, right? Because they're so, they're just stressed. And man, and I love you coming on and talking about all this because it gives credence to the entire idea that it's not, it's real. It's real. It's a real thing we're doing. We're training the brain, which is fantastic. So, Tammy, it's been a pleasure having you on, and we'll catch up again soon. I know that I love sending you a message once in a while. So, all right.
Yep.
Thank you very much for being on. Confidence is knowing what you can do and then going out and doing it. But confidence is also knowing what you can't do. Well, I am confident that I can help your athlete if they're struggling with some mental aspects of their game. However, I'm also confident that I can't help them if you never schedule the first session. That's pretty simple. And I get it. You're busy. Your kid's hesitant. You aren't sure how coaching works. Well, let me fix some of that. If you click on the link provided, you'll be able to schedule a free 30-minute session with me. Your athlete will experience mental performance coaching, and you as the parent will get to ask some questions. There's no cost. There's no obligation. It's just an opportunity for you and your athlete to better understand the transformative power of mental performance coaching. I've helped dozens of athletes conquer anxiety, reach goals, and get over confidence issues. And I use proven methods and techniques. If your athlete has a goal, I'm confident I can help them get there. However, I can't schedule that first session for you. So click on the link to schedule that session. At Mental Metal Coaching, booking the first session is up to you, but the transformation is up to us. Have you ever uttered the phrase, I changed my mind? Maybe you were thinking, hey, was going to order some Domino's, but I changed my mind and I'm going to order some Papa John's, which is a good call. But we say that like it's just a quick thing. Something strikes us. Maybe we're like, hey, I was, going to order some Domino's, but hey, I remembered the garlic butter sauce and yeah, I changed my mind. It's a quick thing. But when we talk about actually changing our mind, know that it's possible. It isn't as quick as deciding what kind of pizza you want to get and, making a snap decision. But you can literally change your mind. And I think before I go into any more of this, you need to believe that. And I think a lot of times we aren't able to see this headspace up here, this brain in here. We don't see it like we do a muscle or a joint. And, if you've ever sprained an ankle, which whoever hasn't, or broken an arm or something, you're able to see maybe an MRI or maybe a X-ray of the bone or of the tendon or something like that, and being like, oh, I see where it's broke. I see it's broke. I see it, or it's ripped. And here's what we need to do. And if I start doing the physical therapy and I do this cast and I do this X, Y, Z, it'll heal. And then we can go back and see another MRI or another, X-ray and see the growth and see the change and know that it's working better. I can do these things now. I want you to know that we can change our minds and heal our minds in the same way and in the same tangible proof can be given. And I think this is more new. I know it's more new. The X-ray is really old and MRIs have been around a little while, but brain scans, and Tammy and I talked about it in there. Brain scans are being used more now to identify a lot of the research that they're finding about the way neural pathways are embedded and also how they're changed. What that means is that, and we all have neural pathways. So don't think it's like, oh, I don't have neural pathways or I want to develop neural pathways, which you can. But the point is we have them and they're very useful for us, right? They help us work efficiently because we get these ideas, we get the way we do our jobs and any sort of repetition that we do. It's all these neural pathways that help us do things easily. I always like to joke that, if you want to, there's two different ways to tie your shoes, right? Like, or maybe more than that. But, when you're a kid, people always, it's like, is it the loop swoop pull or is it the rabbit around the tree thing? And there's different, what movie is that with Big Daddy with Adam Sandler when he's, adopting the kid and all that. And they're talking about how he's going to tie his shoes. And if I suggested you, well, start tying your shoes in the other way, starting tomorrow, you would have to think about it. Right now, you tie your shoes without thinking about it. But what if you wanted to do it the different way? It would be a struggle for you for a while. That's changing a neural pathway. And I know that's a simplistic example, but know that neuroplasticity is the ability to change those neural pathways and how your brain functions. And again, those neural pathways can be seen on a brain scan the same as somebody can see it on an X-ray or an MRI for an injured or a healed part of our body. It's there. And if you want to develop some new neural pathways, it can be done. The idea, and we talked about it, and this is the idea, it's the building blocks for coaching, is that positive psychology. And positive psychology it's been around for a little while, but I do say that it's a fairly new idea, but it's all about how those pathways can be changed. So let's think about some of the negative pathways we have that are not like a physical thing, but actually how we react. Things like anxiety, depression, some trepidation over a situation, or the way we don't like a person. Maybe they've done something to us, just fear, or lack of confidence in situations. And we know those, right? And coaches, and when I coach people, I really touch into the, like, where's it? If I were to say, what's a situation that makes you fearful, or a person that makes you feel a certain kind of way, like as in like it makes you feel very negative and you don't like the way it makes you feel, or you feel kind of they intimidate you and you're a little scared of them, things like that. We all know those. We're like, oh, this person always makes me feel this way. And as we talked about in the interview, perception is reality. Our brain doesn't know the difference. So while we say that fear of a certain person or a situation, we know it's illogical, but if we've got that pathway developed, it doesn't matter. The fear is real as far as how it affects our body and our actions and how we think. The anxiety is real. And if you've ever, if you're listening to this and you're a parent and you've had a kid, an athlete, or not even an athlete, but in a situation, and they get it in their head that something's going to be scary or something that's going to give them anxiety, and it can be to us, it feels like the silliest thing. Why would they be worried about that? They should not be worried about that. And we try to, and if you've ever taken a kid like that and you've tried to joke around it, oh, don't be silly. That's ridiculous, right? They get very offended. They get offended because it's real to them. And it is real to them because they have that pathway they've started to develop, and it's how they feel about it. So if you have those things in your mind, and we all do, right? But let's take it for athletes because that's what we're talking about. If you have an athlete that is worried about a season, worried about practice, worried about a coach, anxious about a game, anxious about these things that have just developed, like you might have a kid that it's like early on in this sport, let's say they started basketball when they were young, and it was their favorite thing. And they had a coach or two they didn't like, or a team or situation they don't like. And suddenly what went to be from being the happiest times of their life is now the one source that brings them like, the ick feeling, and they don't want to go and they want to quit, even though it used to be their favorite thing. And people like to say, oh, well, this coach ruined it for me. Well, people can make things hard on us, but it's our perception on stuff that really gets out of control, right? That negativity, those neural pathways and we always look for evidence on why we're right. So we just reinforce that pathway. Oh, well, coach did this, so he doesn't like me, right? We miss the other stuff. We're not even seeing it. And that's where neuroplasticity really comes in changing the way that we think things and the way we see things in our mind. Now, there's a couple ways to do that. And I would say that I'm oversimplifying it here, but there's basically three parts of this process. The first, and we talked about it, Tammy talked about this, is recognition. You have to actually recognize that there's an issue, right? And this is probably the hardest part because people get egos. And for you to say, let's say your kid is really upset about a coach, and you have to say, I need to recognize that coach is not the problem. And a lot of people stop right there. Oh, well, I'm not doing that because he is the problem or she is the problem. It's not me. If they would just fix this, it'd be fine. And there's a study. So the father of positive psychology is Martin Seligman, and he did this long, drawn out study about happiness and fulfillment. And basically said that, circumstances and things that people do to us and around us makes up 10% of our happiness. Like the worst thing in the world and the best thing in the world that we think could happen to us is really only going to move the needle on our happiness about 10%. The thing that makes the difference is intentional activities and doing things on purpose. And that's the next step, right? And that's like 40%. The 50% is genetic. Genetics always is in there, right? So the step one is recognize on what you need to change. Okay. And that starts to give you that motivation. Two is those intentional activities, doing things on purpose to start building those neural pathways. Intentional activities, so many things. Could be visualization, like she mentioned. Start doing visualization. She said talking about like your situation and put it in a movie. Start visualizing things. If for athletes, it can be as like they've done studies that an athlete visualizing themselves making free throws is really just as important as actually going down and practicing the free throws. Once they know the muscle memory, the visualization is just as important, right? Because the brain doesn't tell the difference. Any sort of meditation, any sort of breath work. We talked about working with voices. I work with athletes all the time on voices and owning their voices and their positive and negative voice. So that intentional activity is speaking and thinking in your positive voice. So many intentional activities that you could do on purpose, and they can all work. It just fits your situation. So that's the first one, recognition, then intentional activities. And then the second one is just time and repetition. And while I say the first one is the recognition's hard, the time is really the hard part, because it's also a really hard part because sometimes people get the recognition or they already know they need to change something. They get given an intentional activity, or we see this all the time. You go on TikTok, you go on anything, and people are going to say, well, here's what you need to do, right? If you would just do this, you'd feel better, you'd sleep better, you'd do XYZ better. And they're right, all these things, but they usually leave out at how long that's going to take to start making a difference. When they told me 12 to 18 months is how long it would develop it, that's what they're talking. We're talking about habits. You don't really create habits in 28 days. There's a whole long story as to why that came from. It's from a study that really has no bearing on anything, but developing a habit and developing new pathways, it's months. And I don't mean to scare you off, right? I don't want to say, oh, it's not worth it, because it is worth it. You just have to keep doing it. Now, that can seem like a negative when you say, oh, it's 12 to 18 months. I have to do this for 12 to 18 months to make it better, to be less anxious. Well, one, you'll start to see progress along the way. It's not a light switch. That's one. And two, how exciting is that to know, oh, if I do this, I am a year away from being fulfilled. I'm a year away from being happier, right? Now, it'll change your mind on how you see happiness. Like, let's say you're a coach and you say, well, if I just start doing meditation, I start doing some visualization, I'm not going to just automatically win the state championship next year. No, but you'll be happy in the struggle to win a state championship, whether you get it or not. You'll be happy in the growth in your players and in yourself. And that's the part that matters, right? It's the controllable you can deal with. And that's what really matters. So you're 12 to 18 months away from basically everything you want in life. I know that's, again, I keep oversimplifying things, but that's how simple it is. And if you are listening, you're like, this all sounds good, but I don't know how to do it, right? Well, you can do some research, you can do some stuff, that's what therapy and coaching is. And that's why it's so useful. And that's why I'm putting it out so much. The reason I give, I always do whenever I have new clients, my first session's always free. And so I'm not just trying to make this a commercial, but like, set up a session, meet a coach, meet a therapist, Tell them what you're wanting. And if you're saying, hey, I want to feel this I want to feel A when B happens, and you tell a therapist, you tell a coach that, they'll get to work, and you'll get to work, and you'll start getting there. If you want to feel better about a certain situation, you're a few months away from feeling better about that situation. You just have to start. You have to start and keep going. Man, I feel like I'll step off my soapbox. I'm sorry, but I want you to understand that neuroplasticity was a huge deal for me, and I needed it because of an injury, but it's gone way beyond that. Way beyond that. It's so much of what it's done for me has nothing to do with my injury. And that was going to happen one way or the other. So long as I kept reading and talking, which, if you know me, I'm going to keep talking. So long as I kept reading and talking, that 12 to 18 months for my speaking ability was going to come back. It just was. But my happiness, my confidence that really took a hit, the anxiety I was feeling, the depression I was feeling, all those struggles, right? That didn't have to come back. That didn't have to get fixed. But I was able to, and I did. All from working with a therapist and then ultimately working with a coach, which I got coached a lot when I got my certification. So I don't mind being on my soapbox, right? You should probably hire a coach. That's who I'm talking to. I'm talking to all of you. You should probably hire a coach. Check it out. And if you want to hire me, let me know. Well, this has been a very passionate episode, and I really enjoyed it. So I will catch you next time.
Thanks again for listening to the Mental Metal Podcast, produced by Coraggio Media, sponsored by QuickCut, a video management platform for every level of play, and by Mental Metal Coaching, helping athletes learn to face adversity in a spirited and resilient way. The Mental Metal Podcast is created each week to help players develop more mental toughness, and that is something that will help all of us. So help me out and like and share the Mental Metal Podcast with your friends. Until next time, keep forging your metal.